In this video, I will very quickly and very briefly describe the different parts of a neuron and what these different parts do. Neurons have a cell body, otherwise known as a soma. The cell body contains the nucleus of the neuron. The cell body also receives connections from other neurons and is involved in neuron-to-neuron communication. For the rest of the parts of the neuron, I want you to think of the structure of a tree. Branching off the cell body directly are what we call dendrites, which would be the branches of a tree. The dendrites also receive connections from other neurons for neuron-to-neuron communication. At the bottom of the cell body, we have an axon that can be very long. The axon is like a tree trunk if we think of a tree. The axon sends electrical signals called action potentials along its length. Bundles of axons form nerves in the peripheral nervous system or tracts in the central nervous system. The axon is connected to the cell body of a neuron via the axon hillock. The axon hillock decides whether an action potential will be initiated in a neuron and is involved in turning electrical signals from the cell body and dendrites into electrical signals that travel down the axon. The axon initial segment is sometimes discussed when speaking about the axon hillock, and the initial segment, as its name suggests, is the first part of the axon. Axons can also be myelinated or non-myelinated. Myelin sheaths are essentially glial cells that wrap around axons of neurons, i.e. Schwann cells for the peripheral nervous system and oligodendrocytes for the central nervous system. Myelin speeds up the conduction velocity of action potentials along the axon. In between the individual myelin sheaths are nodes of Ranvier, which allow the passage of ions between the inside and outside of the axon for action potentials to make it all the way to the end of the axon. Of course, if we had a non-myelinated axon without myelin sheaths, there would be no nodes of Ranvier. Finally, at the end of the axon, like what we would consider roots when considering our tree example, there are axon terminals. Axon terminals are sometimes called synaptic boutons. Axon terminals have vesicles that contain a neurotransmitter. So, when action potentials reach axon terminals, this causes a neuron to release a neurotransmitter for neuron-to-neuron or neuron-to-other cell communication. For neuron-to-neuron communication, the neurotransmitter will bind to receptors on the dendrites and cell body of another neuron. Also, we need to remember that the inside and the outside of the neuron is separated by a cell membrane, which precisely controls the internal environment of the neuron relative to the outside. As neurons are excitable cells, its membrane is excitable. Thanks for watching.